Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Bookish Road Trips, March edition of Author Take the Wheel. I am Hope Gibbs, and I am so excited today because we have with us the author who has taken over our Facebook page with some great posts. My favorite today was of her beautiful dog, Oakley. We are here with Diane Barnes, and we're going to talk about not just her book that I read, and we're going to talk about that first, is All That We Could Still Have. But we're going to talk about her other books, her road to being a published author, and just to getting to know her as a writer. So without further ado, hello, Diane. How are you?
Hi, Hope. Thank you for having me here. I'm excited. It's been a fun week interacting with everyone on the page, so I really appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, well, we are so thankful. I know that you are a very busy woman. And before we get into to talking about this book, which we talked a little bit earlier before we went live about how much I loved it, I just want to give our Bookish Road Trip community a little bit about who you are. So I'm going to read your bio.
Okay.
So, Diane Barnes is the author of All We Could Still Have, More Than, Waiting for Ethan, and Mixed Signals. She is also a product marketing manager in the healthcare industry. When she's not writing, she's at the gym, running, or playing tennis, trying to burn off the ridiculous amount of chocolate and ice cream she eats. She and her husband, Stephen, live in New England with Oakley, their handsome golden retriever. Welcome, Diane. So
Thank you.
I'm going to start with three really hard questions. First,
Oh, boy,
what's
okay.
your what's your go-to chocolate, your favorite ice cream, and do you like your backhand or do you like your forehand?
Okay. The easiest is definitely the forehand. Backhand is pretty weak. Milky Way ice cream, chocolate Milky Way ice cream. We have a stand, homemade stand in Ullman's around where I live, and we go there a lot. And what was the first question?
Your
Oh, the
favorite
favorite
type?
chocolate.
Yeah.
Probably Dove chocolate.
Oh, okay. Well, I actually like my backhand better because I am a tennis player. When I saw that you're a tennis player, I was so excited.
Yeah.
But let's get into this. And for those of you who are joining us live, please give us some questions or comments. I always love to use your questions. And if you're going to watch this at a later date, still ask questions and comment. And Diane and I will get back on and we're going to answer that. So, Diane, let's talk about this book. Tell me a little synopsis of All We Could Still Have.
Sure. All we could still have is about a couple, Kyle and Nikki Sebastian, and they desperately want a baby, but they're having trouble having getting pregnant. Nikki's having trouble getting pregnant, so they try IVF, and after two attempts, Kyle sort of wants to give up. He doesn't want to do it anymore, and Nikki still wants to. After the third attempt, Nikki still wants to keep going, and Kyle doesn't. So they disagree, and then what that disagreement does to their marriage, and if they're over to overcome their differences about this. So it's really about the effect of infertility on a marriage.
Yeah. So we just have Barbara Connery. She's joining us and she says, "Hello, ladies." She is also one of the nicest authors I know.
She is. Hi,
I
Barbara.
agree. I think that Diane, she is, and I'm so excited because I feel like our paths have crossed, but we really haven't gotten to meet like this.
Mhm.
So let's go back to Nikki. She is a complicated protagonist. I found her to be so relatable, but she also has some flaws. And at the very beginning of the story, she has something that she does that's quite harsh, almost unforgivable. Can you tell us a little bit? You don't have to tell us about what she does, but tell us her motivation.
She wants a baby more than anything, and the reason why is because her parents passed away, and she wants to continue their legacy. Her parents owned a restaurant, and the restaurant wasn't doing well. So after their death, she had to sell the restaurant, and she sold it to a family friend who promised that he would preserve it and honor their tradition, and he didn't. So she always feels like she made a mistake by giving away the restaurant. So she wants to do something that carries on her family's lineage, and having a baby is that's why it's so important to her.
Yeah, and in the very beginning, you're with her at the doctor's office. She's
Mm-hmm.
just getting IVF, and that's in vitro fertilization. And it was such an emotional and real scene. I have friends and I've had family that have gone through this. Can you tell us a little bit about how you have personal experience or research? Because you wrote those scenes spot on.
Yeah, I did do a lot of research. Yeah, I read a lot of books on IVFs and a lot of blogs, so that helps. The inspiration for the book was actually a writing prompt I got from a workshop I took with Elizabeth Burke, and the writing prompt was about a woman who dresses up in sexy lingerie and her husband's in the living room, and she goes into the living room and she's marching around, dancing around him, and he's just ignoring her. And so I had to think of a reason, like, why would he act this way? Why is he ignoring her? And then I came up with the idea, oh, they're having trouble having a baby. So that's
Yeah,
really
and
cool.
but you also you make their relationship real because they're a real couple, but you also give backstories. And her husband is Sebastian. And
Hell yeah.
I felt like that they were completely believable and relatable.
Well, I hope so. Yeah. I mean, I worked hard for that. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, no couple is perfect, right? They have their differences. I mean, maybe not as big as Kyle and Nikki, but it's
Yeah.
working through them that is
And the other thing about Nikki is she's working, and you also bring in kind of workplace dynamics and what women have to go through. Can you tell us a little bit about that part? Because I really enjoyed Nikki's relationship with her new boss.
yeah, I think all my stories, except more than the protagonist, works, and that's because work is such a big part of my life. So, and I do think that women maybe have it a little bit tougher than men have been in the office. So, yeah,
And especially with a woman who is trying to become a mother.
right,
And you touch on that theme. This isn't just about IVF. It's what is it that makes a woman a mother? There are different ways to
exactly,
motherhood.
right. Yeah, and what's a family, really? What makes you a
Yeah.
family?
Yeah. And so tell me a little bit about that. Why was that theme something that you were drawn to?
Because I think now in today's day and age, there are so many different types of families, right? So many people split, and then people find families like after, or I don't know. It's a traditional family. Unfortunately, it seems to be going away. So I think that's why it's important to explore other kinds. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not.
and it's a found family. That's
Mhm.
another theme
Yep.
that you touch upon. And you also have a really strong friendship bond in this book. And I will say that was also one of my favorite parts because I think women they friendships are so important. Talk to us about this relationship Nikki has with her best friend.
Yeah, with her best friend Sharon, they grew up next to each other, and they don't always see eye to eye, but they're always there to support each other. So Sharon probably knows Nikki better than anyone, and you can be happy for your best friend, but Nikki is still envious, right? Like Sharon has kids, and that's more what Nikki wants more than anything, and it seems
Yeah.
so easy for Sharon. So Nikki just compares herself to that, but Sharon definitely supports her and helps her through her rough time. So.
And again, that's another relatable quality. I mean,
Mhm.
whether we want to admit it or not, the grass always looks greener on the other side. And you made that believable as well. It wasn't that she didn't love her friend, but
No, she
she
did,
did.
yeah.
Yeah, she wants children more than anything.
Right, and she felt awful for the way she felt about, Sharon, like, that killed her, so and what it was doing to their relationship.
And you also have the family dynamic. You have
Mhm.
so, Nikki's parents are both deceased, but she has a very strong, loving Aunt Izzy.
And
Talk
Izzy,
to
yeah.
me about Aunt Izzy, and did you name Izzy after Elizabeth, who kind of gave you this writing prompt, or was that completely a coincidence?
That's completely a coincidence, yeah, I don't know, sometimes characters just come to me, and Aunt Izzy did, like, I could picture her perfectly, and, yeah, she just came to me, and I was like, "I need to find a place for her in the book," so
Yeah. And then you
yeah.
also have a sister
Yeah,
who
Dana I love,
also
yep. I mean, Dana's complicated, right?
yeah.
She kinda stirs up some trouble. Makes things a little more difficult for Nikki. So, readers' reaction to Dana has been very mixed.
I could see that because there were some pages that I wanted to because I read most of my books on my phone. I wanted to toss my phone at Dana, if
Yeah,
my imaginary Dana. But then she was also, again, a huge support and kind
right.
of even though she's not a reasonable person in her own life, she was giving Nikki
Sh
very good
she was
advice.
she was the voice of reason for Nikki, and I'd like to think that I showed that their relationship changed throughout the book, like, they became closer and understood each other better by the end of the book, and
Yeah, and I love the part where Nikki had not been honest with her sister about her IVF journey.
yep.
And they had to have kind of an honest conversation about that. Tell us about why you decided to keep one sister in the dark, but keep Sharon, the best friend, very much. She knew exactly what was going on.
Yeah. Well, I think for IVF, in my experience, a lot of people like they don't talk about it, right? And
Hmm.
it's just maybe like one trusted person that they want to tell. And I guess Nikki didn't really trust Dana at that point that much. She had never really confided in her before because of the age difference between them. There's like 8 years between them, and she was just used to always confiding in Sharon. So, and she
Yeah.
also viewed Dana as irresponsible, it's kind of immature. And Nikki looked out for Dana, so she didn't want to burden her with her troubles.
And one of the ways that Dana shows how irresponsible she was, she gets this beautiful dog. And after she adopts the dog, she knows that her landlord's not going to let her have it. So she gives it to Nikki, who's
Yep.
going through a lot at the time. And I loved the whole storyline. And the name of the dog, well, there's two names for the dog. One was DOG, and the other one was
Oliver.
Oliver. Yeah.
Yeah, Dana named the dog DOG, and Nikki wanted to call him Oliver. So,
But that dog does help Nikki during a really dark part of this book.
oh,
Um,
absolutely.
Tell us, was Oakley, was he an inspiration for this?
Yeah, he was. He absolutely was. I mean, he's
Yeah.
always underneath my desk. He's under there right now, and yeah, looking down at him like I got to find a part for him in the book. So,
So IVF, as we were talking about, it's a roller coaster. And have you had readers reach out to you about this, about their own personal experiences, how this book has given them a new insight into this?
just that I correctly captured the feelings, the emotions, and thanks for that because people don't really always understand.
Yeah.
So,
Well, so let's pivot a little bit because, this isn't the only book that you have
mhm.
written. So tell us a little bit about the other books that you have written.
Sure. Before my book before this was called More Than. It's about Peggy Moriarty, who is a widow. She has twin kids who are about to leave for college, and her whole life has been about raising these kids. And she doesn't know what to do with herself when they leave. She's overweight, and so before the kids leave for college, they sign her up for a boot camp at her local gym. And Peggy's insulted by this, but then she decides to go, and her life changes because of the people she meets at the boot camp, the friends she makes. So it's about how friends came in and helped her. New friends came in and helped her during this dark time with their kids leaving, and just help her recreate her life and recreate herself, really.
Yeah. And that book came out in, was it 2019 when that book came
Late
out?
2019. Yeah.
Yeah. And you actually were with the same press that I'm with for
Yep.
that
That's
book
how
with
I knew. Yep. Read adept.
yes, you read Adept.
Read
And
adept.
so it was late 2019. So when you were really promoting your book was
It was
pretty
the
much at the
pandemic.
beginning of COVID.
Yeah. It
How
was
did
so.
yeah, and you're a marketing, you do marketing in your real life, what I'm saying, but tell me a little bit about the challenges of marketing a book during COVID.
Yeah, it was hard. In one part aspect, there was talk that people are home and reading more, so books were doing better. But then in others, people are like, no, books aren't doing as well. It was all social media, and I'm just not always convinced about how effective that is. So it was really tough. I like going to like bookstores and meeting readers there, like doing signings and doing readings. So fortunately, I did get to do my launch party for More Than, and I
Oh,
think I did one signing in a bookstore, but the other things that we had planned we couldn't do. So
and how long did it take you to write that book?
um, I don't know, maybe like 2 years, maybe.
Yeah.
I wrote it during Nano, 50,000 words. Got the base of the story, and then spent like so much time revising it.
Yeah. And so, but that's also not the only book that you have written. You've written two other books. Could you
Yep.
tell us
So
about
yep,
those?
my debut was Waiting for Ethan. Also, I wrote that during Nano, and then revised it. And that was initially published by Kensington, and it was a two-book deal. So Mixed Signals was the next book after that. Waiting for Ethan is about a woman who, when she's a teenager, her best friend's grandmother is a psychic, and she tells her the name of her future husband. And the main character Gina's in her 30s, and she finally meets a man by that name. So she's convinced that he is supposed to be her husband. And so it's about what happens. And Mixed Signal is about a woman who goes through a breakup and how she gets through the breakup. And
Yeah. Well,
In
we've got
that.
some more comments. Barbara Connery says, I loved More Than. And then we also have a Facebook user. I can't see your name. It just says Facebook user says, sounds like a great book. Well, I can attest to all that we could still have is a incredible book, and the other ones sound great as well.
Thank you.
So let's pivot a little bit about why you became a writer. Is this something that was a lifelong dream of yours, or did you kind of stumble across it?
Nope, I always wanted to be a writer, since 2nd grade. Yeah, 2nd grade, we went out for recess one day, we came back, and there were these paper footsteps footsteps cut up, made out of paper, and they were, like, planted all over the classroom, under desk, over chairs, out the window, and we had to write a story about what happened when we were at recess, who left these huge paper footsteps, and they gave you those little composition books, and I just kept filling them up, and I wouldn't stop writing. So from that day, I just kept writing and writing and writing.
Can you
Uh
still remember what you wrote?
It was probably about, like, Bigfoot or something, like, I don't really remember, but
So then how did you become a published author? So that's the thing here at Bookish Road Trip. We have so many readers that are curious on how a book is made and how it gets to the
Mhm.
marketplace. We have a lot of authors, but we also have people who are kind of thinking about, writing that first sentence. Tell us a little bit about how it was for all of these books.
Sure. So, for Waiting for Ethan, my first one, I did it during Nano with one of my friends. So the whole month, that's all we did was write. We just focused on writing and writing. Like when we weren't working, we were in Borders writing or in the coffee shop writing. So, and then the month was over, and I had my 50,000 words, and I'm like, well, I spent this whole month doing this. I need to like see this through. So I kept writing, and then I saw some workshops, like ads for workshops, and I took the workshops and finally revised it and got it to a point where I thought it was good. And I gave it to a book club to read, and they gave me feedback. I incorporated all that, and then I went on the task of trying to get an agent. And I was really lucky. I guess my query letter was pretty good because I got a lot of requests for full. So that turned out to be a great thing. And then as soon as I talked to my agent on the phone, I knew that she was the one that I wanted to represent it. So
And then she sold all of your books for you, correct?
yep, yep, she did.
Yeah. And so how important is that relationship for you? I mean, does she help you with content edits? Or is she strictly trying to find a place for your book?
More, both really. I mean, content and sure, when I first hand it in, she'll have suggestions, things that she thinks readers will like, or things that readers might not like, or editors, more importantly, like might not like. So yeah, her and her team are the first reader of the book, but mostly, focusing on who would be a good fit for the book.
Yeah. And Barbara Connery, she just had a great question. What was your favorite workshop? Because you just mentioned workshops.
Um, Novel Generator. It was at Grub Street, and it was an 8-month program taught by Annie Hartnett. And I actually worked on All We Could Still Have during that. So you just come in there with like an idea for a book, and you just spend the next 8 months working on the book. And you workshop it. You work in like teams of 3 or 4, and it was really really good, really really helpful. But Grub Street has a lot of they novel in progress was a big one that I always took, and every couple of weeks you get a chance to like read a chapter, and you get on the spot feedback. So
Yeah. And then one of the other things that you're very active with is the WFWA, which is the Women's Fiction Writers Association. Tell us how you found that group of writers, and how did it change you as a writer? Did you meet critique partners, or did you do the
mhm.
webinars, or did you just tell us a little bit about your experience?
Sure. So when I joined Red Adept, as you know, Red Adept has an incredibly supportive author community. And Jennifer Klepper, who's one of the authors at Red Adept, she's the one who told me about Women's Fiction Writers Association. So I signed up for it based on her recommendation, and it's been super helpful. And yeah, critique partners, I've had a lot of them from women's fiction, and I do a lot of the webinars whenever I have, there's one that appeals to me. I do them. I do a lot of
That's
Writer's Digest webinars too sometimes, especially if an agent is critiquing the pages. Um, I think it's when I was writing All We Could Still Have. Carly Waters did a lot of them where she was critiquing the pages. She would read like maybe the first page in your synopsis and like talk about it. And even though I already had an agent, I still did that. And she requested it like just from those, my few pages. So that was pretty cool. So I knew like, I thought, okay, maybe I'm onto something with this book.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And I love that you said that Jennifer Klepper was the one who got you. She's the one who got me with the
yep,
WFWA.
very
And
true.
ironically, I watched Barbara Conry. They did an interview with her, and I watched her there. And it's a small world, but I love the writing community because of the support. What kind of support system do you have around you regarding the writing community?
Yeah. So when I was writing, waiting for Ethan, I went into the library, my local library, and to get a book, and I saw a sign for a writers group, like meets, and I was like, oh, I should go to that. And that was so many years ago, and I attended it, and I still attend it now. So it's a group from my local town, like their town library. They're my main writing group, and huge support. I have my friend who I did Nano with. She's writing, and we always talk about it. It's a hard, publishing is really hard. So it's good to have someone who knows that to talk to about it. And my friend at work, we always brainstorm. She helps me brainstorming story ideas. So yeah, I have a
Well,
whole
speak.
bunch of supportive people. My sister is
Well,
always asking me about my book. So we
I,
brainstorm too.
Yeah. Well, I love that because having a community is very important, and it sounds
Mhm.
like that you've definitely surrounded yourself and with some very wonderful writers. Let's talk about you. You're more than just an author and a writer. Tell us how you kind of keep balance because we talked about this earlier. It gets really hard, not just to publish, but once your book is out, you've got to promote it. This is a way of promoting your book. What do you do for you?
Spend time with family and friends. I mean, that's the most important thing, I think. Just going for walks with my husband and my dog, playing games with my sisters, going out for dinners and movies, and shows with my friends, just those kind of things.
Yeah. And do you have a specific, like a lot of writers are very oriented, like goal plan oriented. They wake up at 5 a.m. and they write for 2 hours and then they check their emails and then they do promotion and then
Yeah,
a
no,
lot of,
I don't. I'm not that disciplined. I mean, I'll know like on the weekends I have to write, like I want to write. So I used to write more after work sometimes too. Um, Not as much anymore. Work's gotten a little bit um, more challenging. Went into a new role, so I'm kind of tired at the end of the day. So I'm more weekends writing, like waking up on Saturdays and Sundays, getting a few hours in. We also in the summertime spend a lot of time in Maine, and I do a lot of writing there because it's really quiet, and usually I'm on vacation there, so it's possible to get a ton of writing done.
yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about all we could still have because I told you earlier how much I absolutely, I mean, I just think that this cover is stunning. Can you
Yep.
tell us about how much input you had with this cover?
Um, so Lake Union sent me a couple of concepts for the covers, and then I picked the one that I liked, and then they kept working on it. So basically, I mean, it almost looked like this. Maybe the coloring was a little bit different, and the images of the people might have been a little bit different, and they do a questionnaire in the beginning too, like what are the main themes, what is some imagery, and based on that, they create the cover. But they made sure that I was happy with the cover. I mean, they definitely asked me a couple of times, "Are you sure you're okay with this?" So.
Yeah. And so, what are some of your best tips for our writers for promoting? Because you're in marketing, that is your day job as well. What have you found to be some of the best, not only for your time, but also with money?
Yeah, that's so hard. I mean, I think the most important thing you can do is support other authors and be honest about your support for other authors. And then when the time comes, hopefully they'll support you too. Um, I've done some blog tours, definitely great at getting out the word about my book. Those help. Writing for blogs helps, but it's tough. It's so different than the marketing during my day job, which is business to business, not
Yeah.
B2C. So, or
So before you were a published author, were you surprised about the amount of marketing and work that you have to put into your book?
Absolutely, I had no idea. I thought you just wrote the book and you were done. Like, okay, now I can move on to my next book. But I mean, marketing is really where it's at, right? Because you can write a book, the publisher can pick it up, but if your book doesn't sell, you're not going to get another book. So it's so important and it's so hard.
And let's talk about reviews because before I became an author, a published author, I rarely wrote reviews. I would read tons of books, but I didn't realize just how important they are. Tell us about, what's been helpful on getting reviews.
Asking people, really,
Yeah.
begging people.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I pulled this review from your Goodreads, and I believe this. I love this book so much. It was Diane Barnes has done it again. I just fell in love with Nikki from the very beginning and could not put this book down. Written with great insight and empathy for very real human struggles and complicated family relationships. I
Love
pulled that
that.
one off of Goodreads, and they're all like that. Because you really, like I said, you wrote a book that is so relatable. Even if
I
you've
hope so.
never gone through IVF or know someone, I felt like I had been through that process.
Hmm. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, definitely.
So we're getting ready to wrap this up a little bit. But I want to ask you. I know that you just got another book deal that was announced not long ago. Tell us a
Mhm.
little bit about that because it's so exciting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's really exciting. So this book, my working title was "Mary Mulligan Gets a Do Over." It's the title of it is going to be "The Mulligan Curse," and it's about a woman, Mary Mulligan, who's 54, and she used to work as a television reporter, but then she had a baby and stayed home at work and raised the baby and gave up her career. And she's 54. She's in the supermarket and she sees one of her old coworkers on the cover of People magazine as America's most trusted broadcaster. And it just sends her spiraling. Like that could have been her if she had held on, to her job. And so she wishes she was 24 again so she could do it all over and make different choices. And then her dream comes true and she gets to be 24 again. But she doesn't go back to when she was originally 24. She was 24 in 2019. I mean, she was 54 in 2019 and then she's 24 in 2019. So it's different than like being 24 when she was really 24. And it's just like how the world has changed, what she has to deal with, and just realizing that did she really want to go back? Like was it a mistake to go back? So
Okay, I can't wait.
yeah, it was fun.
Please let me be an advance reader for that. I just love that, and that is gonna be published by Lake Union is
Lake
correct?
Union, yeah.
Okay, and then tell us what you're working on, right now. What's got your attention?
Yeah, well, I'm still working on with the Lake Union team on editing that book, so we're still doing that, and a couple of different ideas that I've started, but none that I've really have gotten too far with yet
Yeah,
for the
and
next book.
how do you just 'cause this is another question. A lot of people don't realize how hard content editing is. A lot of people think that you just give it to an editor and they do the work and they send it back. It is not like that.
No,
Tell me about your experiences with editing.
yeah. So for Mary Mulligan, that was really intense. The developmental edit, just a lot of questions about what wasn't working, like why this, like why are her emotions like this, and me having to like really dig deep to figure out, okay, why did she behave that way? Yeah, really, really helped improve the story though. I can't say enough good things about editors. They do magical work. So
Yeah, I truly I tell people that's where the book comes to life. I mean, the
absolutely,
first draft is the idea, the story is
yep.
there, but your story truly shines with editing and it's a different type of writing. It's a different part of your brain, I think.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Yeah, but by then though, the characters, so I mean, not easier, but you have more of an idea, right? Like when you're first just writing, you're just spitting it out there, but then you get it out there and you know them. So on the revision, I think you definitely know your characters better, and that's where the magic happens.
Absolutely. Well, I cannot thank you enough. I know that this you've taken, time out of your day to be with us and for this week, and we still have you for another day. I'm so excited about that. But I know that our community, they're going to want to keep up with you. Can you tell us where they can find you on social media?
Sure. On Twitter and Instagram at Diane Barnes 777 and at my website, dianeMbarnes.com.
And I told you this earlier. You have a stunning website. It's
Oh,
very,
thank you.
I go through a lot of author websites and it's a really, really nice one. And I just want to say again, thank you for being here. And
Thank you
next
for
month,
having me.
yes, absolutely. Next month, I will be back here with another author for Author Take the Wheel. So until next time, everyone.
Bye bye.